Morning, everybody. This morning on the front porch, I did some study in Mark chapter 14 again, and what I found today was a little insight into the cost, what it costs to be a Christian. I like to talk to different people about where they come from and where they're at in their faith. And a lot of times we discuss things that are more controversial. And sometimes those conversations take us to places where you learn about people and how they really believe Christianity works. And I think one of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had was one about how there are some believers out there that think that becoming a Christian won't cost you anything, that it's just something that's freely given, to the extent that it's not something that requires anything from us. And while, yes, it is true that the gift of salvation is free from Christ, in the sense that we don't have to sacrifice in the sense of a goat or something along those lines. There are sacrifices that come with being a Christian. And those sacrifices are worldly sacrifices, things that you shouldn't have to begin with, and even further, some things that you may want to have. And I'll give you some examples. You see where in Mark chapter 14, when Jesus is approached by the crowd, they're armed, and they come with Judas, and they're ready to fight. And the disciples, with the exception of Peter, don't really give a fight back so much as they kind of protest. And when Jesus tells them, no, you're not going to fight back, he never says, but you don't have to run. He lets them make that decision. And so all of the disciples that were with him chose to run. They chose to leave him. One of them, in fact, was running so hard that when they went to grab him, they grabbed his clothes, and he ran off naked without his clothes. And so you have this guy who's following Jesus for something like 3 years, and when they reach out to take him along with Jesus, he runs to the point that he's willing to give up and take off his clothes and just run off and leave Jesus alone to deal with what's going to happen to him. This reminded me of what the cost really is for Christianity. Being a Christian means you've got to be willing to give it all away. You've got to be willing to make him Lord, and that includes Lord of everything that you own, everything that you are, everything that you have. I was speaking to a young man yesterday about things that happen in the spiritual world that like to attach themselves to us. And even those things we need to be willing to give up. We need to be willing to get those things off of us and broken off of us. As a Christian, you're going to have to check in your pride. You're going to have to check in your feelings. You're going to have to check in your riches. You're going to have to check in your poorness. You're going to have to check in all of these things and just give them to him. You have to give it all to him. And when you finally do give it all to him, that's when you actually get freedom. It's hard to understand what it means to give everything over to a Lord in America today, but that's exactly what it requires. It is a cost. And those that I hear say that, God wouldn't want you to go through hard times, or God wouldn't allow you to go through pain, I would say, look at the original Christians and what they had to give up. They had to give up everything. They had to give up their lives. They had to give up their families at times. They had to give up their freedom. But it's not just them. I mean, it's throughout history, Christians have had to give up so many things. In fact, that's why we built the United States of America, so we could have some safe place for Christians. In the world today, you still see that Christians are having to give up things, that they're having to let go of things, and the enemy tries and does take them. But I think to have the idea that when you become a Christian, that all of a sudden everything's going to be hunky-dory, or everything's going to be okay and you're not going to have to give up anything, you have to ignore almost all of Christian history to think that. You got to be willing to go get in the jail cell with him. You got to be willing to take Jesus into places where it's going to be a fight to take him. And sometimes that's your own life, your own household. Sometimes it's your job. Sometimes it's all of it. Being a Christian does come with a cost, but it is worth it. Those costs are typically things that you don't really need anyway. Those costs are typically things that'll hurt you in the long run. It sounds like I'm giving a grim view of Christianity, but you have to look at what you're doing this for. Why are you choosing to follow Jesus Christ? What is the point of all of this? I think for me, the point is because I love God. And He's done so many crazy, awesome things for me. Not just here on earth. He's loved me enough that He's fought throughout history to make sure that I knew who He was. He's fought throughout history to make sure that His message was spread across the globe. He sacrificed His Son so that I would find salvation. He's done so many things well beyond that. He's changed people's lives in my family, not to make them rich or not to make them, safe and secure. He's changed their lives in the sense that they now understand what it means to really live. They now understand what it means to not be focused on self. That's cool, man. That's totally worth it. Watching the different people that I've seen in this last year come to Christ in a way that makes me feel ashamed that I haven't gotten that close. That's so cool to see that. It's such a blessing. It's such a gift. I would ask you this as you walk through your life today. Is there something you're holding on to that you need to let Him have? Is there something that's going to be a cost for you that you don't want to let go of? I would tell you that anything that you're holding on to, anything that you think is that important, I can guarantee you once you give it to Him, He will make your life something completely different. He will take that piece of you that you thought was so important, and He will make you even greater than what that part that you thought was important was. God's cool like that. And I think that's one of the things we missed as Christians, is yes, it may cost us certain things. It may even cost us relationships that we have. But in the end, Romans 8:28 says this. He says that God will cause all things to work together for good for those who love Him. Some of the things that happened in my past that I've gone through, they weren't good things. But I can minister to people who've gone through those things now. I can talk to people who've been through those things. And I can also talk to people who have done the things that I've done. And God still loves me. I just want to encourage you guys to really look at the costs. Look at those things that you need to give up and determine which is more valuable. Your relationship with Christ or that thing that you hold so dear. That's what God gave me this morning, guys. God bless you. Love you.